This podcast is sponsored by the Fireman Moving Company. The Fireman Moving Company is the official moving company of WKU Athletics. Not only can they be trusted to move all the coaches in and out of Western, but they can move you anywhere nationwide. The Fireman Moving Company is owned and operated by firemen and is founded by WKU alumni. If you are looking to move sometime soon, give them a call at 270-791-1755 and get yourself a free quote. Welcome to Topper Talk, your number one Western Kentucky athletics podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Moffitt, and I'm joined by co-host Tyler Bailey. Hilltopper Nation, whether it's happening on the hill or on the road, grab those red towels, stand up and cheer, because it's up next on Topper Talk. All right, welcome back, and thank you for downloading and listening to another episode of the Topper Talk podcast. As always, we are the official podcast of the Red Towel Trust Collective, and we're a proud member of the College Huddle podcast community. Make sure you're following us on all of our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, especially Twitter. That's our main platform where we post all of our news, stats, information. Our YouTube channel, as always, has all of our video episodes that we upload weekly. Now, I've got Tyler here with me, man. We've got a big bowl game preview to jump into, man. You ready to dive in?
Well, you already know. Let's jump into it.
But before we do that, we have to get caught up with our Red Towel wrap-up, which is brought to us by Trent Bedding Company and catches us up with all the WKU athletics that we've missed since we last recorded.
Don't forget your headboard, pillows, and your sheets. We got everything you need for a good night's sleep. Number one on the same check, best of Bowling Green.
All right. Hey! Twins, full, queen and king, mattresses for anything. Come and pick it out and we can bring it to your house. Have you sleeping real good before the weekend's out. Trent Bedding. It's just like a mattress store. Hey.
All right, so jumping into it, starting off, WKU baseball got signings from Ethan Reynolds and Duncan Bowles.
Yeah, a couple signings to a baseball program that is on the rise. I think we have big expectations in 2025. I have seen a lot of good signings, transfers, and high school. Ethan Reynolds is a local kid. Glad to have him, staying here at home and coming to Western, and then Duncan Bowles as well. And I have a feeling we're going to see a few more signings during this signing period. But welcome to the Hill, guys.
Now to hit you with some portal news. Darius Thomas, he committed to Louisville. LT Sanders committed to Northern Alabama. Darius Walker visited Auburn, and Hosea Wheeler visited Indiana and Wisconsin. Caden Veldkamp is visiting FAU and Miami of Ohio.
Yeah, we hit you with the full portal list as it stood when we recorded, 3-ish days ago. And there's just been a few updates, a couple guys that have committed to other schools. I would assume that those guys are not going to play in the bowl game. Haven't heard that officially, but, since they're committed elsewhere, I would assume Darius and LT are not playing in the bowl game. I would almost say the same about Dallas and Hosea. Haven't heard anything official. Not sure if they traveled with the team, but those two I probably wouldn't expect to also play. Caden Veldkamp has been announced he is playing in the bowl game and then visiting FAU afterwards, the day after the bowl game, and then Miami, Ohio, a couple days after.
And we also found that wide receiver Coy Moore, offensive line Evan Wibberly, and wide receiver Demeek Starlin also entered the portal.
Yeah, so that full list of portal entrants, which I've updated a couple times on Twitter and Facebook in the WKU football group, if you follow us there or follow that group at all, is now up to 32 total names that have entered the portal, and 2 of those being off the board, Darius and LT, that have committed to other schools. So that's a lot of names, a lot of bodies, a lot of players. You couple that with the 27 outgoing seniors. We might be looking at a lot of turnover. Even though I do still feel like a lot of these players will return to Western Kentucky after they explore their options, see what's out there, see what the interest level is. I feel like a good number of that 30 that are remaining, possibly will come back to Western. But obviously we'll just see how that plays out, and we'll update it as it happens.
And if you thought we was done about football news, you're wrong. WKU football QB coach and co-offensive coordinator Drew Hollingshead is interviewing for the offensive coordinator position at UTEP.
Yeah, if he's interviewing for another offensive coordinator position, I would assume that he has a foot out the door and that he possibly potentially won't be back at Western Kentucky next year. I haven't heard if he got that job or if he's officially just not going to be here next year. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a few name shakeups or a few coaching position shakeups on the coaching staff. I think there was another one I forgot to write it down, but Cap Didi also took another job somewhere else. I forget where that was, but I know he has moved on as well officially. Drew Hollingshead interviewing for an offensive coordinator position at UTEP. And I have a feeling those won't be the last, but best of luck to those guys.
Elijah Young, he also declared his intention to enter the NFL draft.
Yeah, best of luck to Izzy. Just a really solid player for us over the last 2 years. Really good, transfer portal addition from Missouri last year. In that crowded running back room last year, kind of stood out by the end of the year that he was running back one. Has definitely been that guy this year, both as a runner and a pass catcher. Really excited to see him have one more game. Hopefully he gets to play and make an impact in this bowl game. And then obviously we'll be right there cheering him on for his pro day. Hopefully NFL draft combine invite and his possibility of getting drafted or even an undrafted free agent signing. So best of luck, Elijah.
And to finish it up, WKU basketball, they win an overtime thriller against rival Murray State, 81-76.
Yeah, heck of a win. Don McHenry is that guy. I mean, he just went off, caught fire, would not let us lose that ball game. That was our 100th victory over Murray State in that rivalry. So out of 154 games, we've won 100 of those and lost 54. So pretty good when you're beating them 2-1. That team from the Mules, the Murray State Racers. Always nice to beat them. Also beat them last year at their place. Not sure if that series will be continuing after this year, but that's one of those ones I would love to see it be, an annual thing, home and away in the non-conference. Of course, one of the biggest stories from that game was that Babacar Faye went down with an injury. Looked like he hobbled off. Wasn't putting much pressure on that knee when he went off the court. Haven't heard an update on how serious that is. I'm sure there's imaging that had to be done and haven't heard the results of that. But whenever that is announced, we'll obviously share that news on the podcast Twitter account or on our next recording. But obviously, we hope the best for Babacar, and we're glad that the basketball team has continued their winning ways.
I agree, sir. And with that, that concludes the Red Tower Wrap-Up brought to you by the Trent Bedding Company.
Yeah, awesome. A shorter wrap up than what we normally have because we just recorded just a few days ago, but still a lot of good information. But now we've got a bowl game preview to dive into, and that is our upcoming Boca Raton Bowl versus James Madison. That game will be this upcoming Wednesday, December 18th, with a 4:30 p.m. Central Time kickoff. The game is being played in Boca Raton, Florida. That's at FAU's home stadium. This is the first ever meeting between these two schools, which is kind of surprising when I was diving into the series information. WKU enters the game with a record of 8-5, having most recently lost to Jacksonville State in the Conference USA Championship game. Let's just forget that one ever happened. JMU finished the season at 8-4, and they lost to Marshall in a 2 overtime thriller in their final regular season game. James Madison is currently a 6.5 point betting favorite if you're into that sort of thing, with an over under of 52.5. The ESPN matchup predictor really likes James Madison, giving them a 72.5% chance of victory to only 27.5 for WKU. James Madison all time is 0-1 in FBS bowl games, losing last year in their first appearance. Meanwhile, WKU is 7-3 all time in bowl games. That 70% win percentage is the best for all FBS teams with at least 10 appearances. Most recently, we've had wins over Sunbelt Conference teams like ODU, South Alabama, and Appalachian State. We're also 2-0 in previous Boca Raton Bowl appearances with wins over Appalachian State in 2021, which was the Bailey Zappi just scorched earth year. And then a few years prior to that, we beat Memphis, and we scored at least 51 points in both of those games. So Tyler, jump in. A lot of information before we dive into stats and particulars about this game, but just what is your overall feeling about this matchup for WKU?
Well, I feel like it's going to be a hard fought game. JMU comes in here hungry. This is their first actual bowl game that they can play in and win. After they had that just absolute awesome season last year. This team is hungry for that first bowl win in school history. I feel like Western better come prepared because it's going to be a fist fight.
Yeah, and then jumping into some James Madison team stats and kind of comparing them to how they rank compared to WKU. They are 49th in total offense. They average 408.8 yards per game. Compared to WKU, we are 77th, averaging 377.8 yards per game, so about a 30-yard difference per game. They are 24th in scoring offense, averaging 33.8 points per game. Meanwhile, WKU is 88th, averaging 25.5. And I think we all know that really took a nosedive over the last 3-4 games of the season. JMU is 25th in total defense. They're only allowing 322 yards per game. Meanwhile, WKU is 96th, allowing 397.5 yards per game. JMU is 27th in scoring defense, allowing 20.75 points per game. WKU is 66th, averaging 24.46 points per game. And then on third down conversions, they're 66th. They're converting 40.8% of the time. Meanwhile, WKU is not far behind them. We're 54th. Or actually, we're a little ahead of them with a 42% conversion rate. And then on third down defense, JMU is 13th in the nation, allowing only 32% of third downs to be converted. Meanwhile, WKU, we're on the other side of that. We are 108th in the nation, allowing a 44.3% third down conversion. And then this is the big one that jumped out at me. I see a lot of good things defensively for James Madison, or bad, I guess, if you want to look at it from our perspective. But they look really solid defensively. And then, this is kind of the cherry on top for them. Looking at turnover margin in all of the NCAA, all teams, they are number 1 in turnover margin at plus 17. So they take care of the ball. They don't turn it over a lot, and they get a lot of takeaways. Plus 17 in 12 games. That's huge. That's a number that, Western the last 2-3 years has been at or near the top in the NCAA. But we're not there this year. This year we're tied for 68th, and we're at -1. So we're actually on the negative side of that turnover margin battle that is usually, very crucial and key to, how games turn out. So, Tyler, just looking at those team stats and how these teams stack up, what are your thoughts on this matchup? Just looking at these stats.
Well, from someone who didn't keep up with them this season, those stats are pretty eye-opening, especially that turnover margin, being first out of all FBS teams. And then, you look at their total yards. They're, like you said, averaging 408. We like to pride ourselves on having a big play type offense, one that will come in and put yards on you and run up the score. Historically, I mean, that's crazy that we're ranked 77th and they're 49th. I think that's just testifies to how good this team is, and we better come prepared for them.
I hear Reed being pretty upset about it. To let him know I'm upset about it too. On paper, I don't like how it looks so far, but I think there's more that we have to talk about. So let's look at some of the JMU stat leaders for this season. Their leading passer is quarterback Alonzo Barnett. He is number 14. He's a 6 foot, 207-pound sophomore. 60% completions on the season, 2,598 yards, 26 passing touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. We talked about them taking care of the ball. He also has 442 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. But I made these notes and then I found out Alonzo's not playing in this ball game. QB1 not playing, injured in their loss to Marshall in the last game of the season. And then when we talk to the James Madison guys, we find out QB1's not playing, QB2's not playing. They're starting their third string quarterback. So let's talk about him. That's quarterback Billy Atkins. He's number 11, 6'2", 204-pound junior. He has 1 passing attempt this season. No stats, no completions, no yards, no nothing. It was incomplete. He's their guy, and I'm not sure what to expect from him, but I have a feeling they're going to be leaning on this next guy instead of letting him sling the ball. And that's running back George Pettaway. He is number 6. He's a 5'10", 199-pound sophomore. He has 880 rushing yards on the season. He's averaging 5.9 yards per carry. He has 5 touchdowns rushing on the season. He also has 200 yards receiving on 24 receptions, plus another 2 touchdowns. Really gives me kind of Elijah Young type vibes, when I'm just reading over those stats real quick. Then their leading receivers, I've got 2 of them I want to highlight. The first one is wide receiver Ymir Knight, number 0, 5'8", 180-pound sophomore, 49 catches for 567 yards and 4 touchdowns, 11.6 yards per reception. And then wide receiver Omarion Dollison, number 9. He's a 5'10", 181-pound senior. He has 31 catches for 551 yards. He's a big play wide receiver. He has 6 touchdowns on the season, leads the team, and a 17.8 yard per catch average. Tyler, jump in. Talk about some of these offensive guys. Are we worried? You like what you see, what you hear? What are your thoughts on the offensive side for James Madison?
Well, if Lonzo was playing, he's our second leading rusher with 135 carries for 442 yards. Yeah, that with George Pettaway. I think I would be pretty nervous because we know how iffy our run defense it is, especially the last 4 games of the season. But with him being out, that takes one of their weapons away. Billy Atkins, he has no stats. Who knows what he can do? He ain't rushed the ball none. He's just did that 1 pass, and as you said, it was incomplete. Definitely kind of a mystery there, even though he has been in the program for a good long while. I still feel like he will complete some passes, but I don't feel like that's something we really need to worry about. It is the running game that I would still try to lock down on because they got Wayne Knight. He's a running back. He's got 6 carries for 427 yards. He's our third leading rusher. Joey Mailari. He's got 40 carries for 257 yards. Tyler Purdy. He's another running back, 36 carries for 161 yards. I would definitely be worried about their whole stable because obviously if their passing game ain't working, they will have to go to that. And we know what teams have done to us. You take the Liberty, you take La Tech, you take Jack State. Good Lord, you take Jack State. I hate them. They exposed us. Also, Yamar Knight, that's a brother to Wayne Knight. You know, leading receiver, 49 receptions, as you said, 567 yards. Cam Ross, he's a third leading receiver, 37 receptions for 443 yards. That's good for 12 yards per. He's averaging 12 yards per catch. Taylor Thompson, he's a tight end, 32 receptions for 427 yards. George, as you said, George also has some receiving yards, so he is kind of like that Elijah Young. But a lot of weapons that they can use. If we can take away the Yamir Knight, Omarion Dollison, Cam Ross, and all of them, if you take away that passing game, then that really helps us. But we still have to shut down 4 or 5 different running backs. It's going to be a tough test for us.
Yeah, that run defense is going to be tested again one more time this season. Do we have it in us? Is it going to be the first Jacksonville State matchup, or is it going to be the second Jacksonville State matchup? Which defense is going to show up? Are we going to have good eyes, good angles, or we're going to get gashed? And you talked about the Knight brothers. Hopefully they don't have a good night. That's all I'll say. That's all I got. Now, looking at the defensive side of the ball for James Madison, they're led in tackles by safety Jacob Thomas. He is number 7. He is a 6'1", 217-pound junior. He has 70 total tackles on the season. 33 of those are solo. He has half a sack and 3 interceptions. They're led on the defensive line by Eric O'Neill. He is number 99, 6'3", 250-pound junior. He has 49 tackles on the season. 20 of those are solo and 11.5 sacks. That boy gets after the quarterback from the defensive line. Looking at their leading interception guy, cornerback Terrence Spence. He's number 3. He's a 6'2", 195-pound senior. 34 tackles on the season, 25 of those solo. He has 5 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, 1 touchdown. Sounds a lot like another guy, number 21 on our defense, Upton Stout, that's just everywhere making plays, has a nose for the football, and is just an impact player. So I would definitely be aware of where he is at all times. Tyler, jump in, talk to me about some of these defensive guys. We know that they have a good defense, ranked high nationally, and they take the ball away a lot. What are your thoughts on these guys and their defense?
Well, I definitely don't like Terrence Spence. He's leading the team with 5 interceptions. That's crazy. We know Caden's going to have to make smart, good passes and make it to where he can't get the ball, only our receivers can. Jacob Thomas, the boy is he's just a good defensive player. You don't get numbers like that if you're slack. That Eric O'Neill, I really hope our offensive line is able to stop him and definitely know about him, because Caden has gotten it's like 21 sacks on the season. I would hate for that number to go up exponentially because Eric O'Neill was able to get back there to him, or Caden starts feeling pressure or feeling phantoms whenever he's not there. He's just been hit a few times, and he starts making passes that he knows that he normally wouldn't or he shouldn't make, and that's when the interceptions happen and fumbles and stuff like that. So yeah, this defense, it's tight. I mean, they're ranked high for a reason, and hopefully our offensive coordinators and offensive coaches they obviously have to know that. Hopefully they make smart decisions about this.
Yeah, it's going to be a really tough matchup. And, to get a little bit more insight and knowledge about this James Madison football team and what to expect in this game, we had a friend from the JMU Sound Off podcast join us. We got Michael join us to break this team down a little bit more. So let's jump to that interview right now. All right, and we've got Michael from the JMU Sound Off podcast that's joined us here on the show to talk some JMU football with us, man. Michael, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us.
What's up, fellas? Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited for our first official bowl game in JMU history, kicking off on Wednesday. So thanks for having me.
It's going to be a good one, I have a feeling. But before we jump into the game and our teams and what we need to know about James Madison, I guess first tell us a little bit about your JMU fanhood and then what got you into the podcasting side of things.
Yeah, no doubt. So I actually have a personal account. It's Michael_2clutch on Twitter, now X. I actually started following JMU really closely when I was in school. So I graduated in 2012. Found out very quickly people are very much interested in recruiting, knowing about prospects, what players were landing, what offers did they have, how many stars did they have, even at the FCS level. So I started talking about that back in 2010, grew in popularity a little bit there. People started following on Twitter, and you learn very quickly, JMU fans, while growing by the minute, were very passionate, even 2009, 2010, 2011, which I consider were the dark ages of the program, by the way, even though we haven't had a losing season in, I think, 22 years now. There was a lot of 8-5s, a lot of, we had 1 6-6 year, but there was a lot of passionate fan base. So that happened about 10 plus years ago. And then a couple buddies and I, 3 years ago, started JMU Sound Off because we really wanted to capture the spirit of the fan base. It's a very passionate bunch. We've hosted college game day, so it's very easy to see how many people come out to JMU games and just how loud and boisterous we are, which some of the Sun Belt programs probably don't appreciate too much, but we wanted to capture that voice. So we started doing Twitter Spaces. We've since graduated and have done, we're now on StreamYard. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, X, Blue Sky, you name it, and then just really tried to grow the program, and now working directly with the collective and the actual JMU Do Club to help with fundraising. It's just been really a fantastic run since.
All right. Well, let's jump into the question I got. Looking at this year's football team, you're coming off just a great year, 11-2 overall, 7-1 in conference. And of course, you did lose your head coach and your QB1. What were some of the expectations of this year's teams before the season began?
It was a weird transition. We were talking offline here. Not only did we lose our head coach to Indiana, we lost not just our quarterback one. He ended up going to Texas State after he wasn't really sure if he was committed or not. We lost our top 15 upperclassmen to Indiana as well. We lose our basketball coach to Vanderbilt. Our athletic director retires, so we get a new athletic director, and our university president moves on as well. So we have an interim president at the moment. So it's a very interesting transition because it wasn't just a coaching change. It was a regime change all around for James Madison. So I think going into the year, our standards have always been very high, right? Conference championships. Over the last 10 years, we've had an 80% win rate, both FBS and FCS combined. We've been at 8 postseasons. We've had 6 conference titles. The bar is set very high at JMU. However, there's also reality. And, we brought in 63 new players mostly from the transfer portal and obviously from recruiting. New coaching staff comes in from the Patriot League, Holy Cross, even though they won 5 league championships, which is, Coach Chesney has a background of winning as well. And he's been a head coach everywhere he's been at. But I think it's been a learning year, right? We're 8-4. The 3 games that we lost, we were up 10-0, we were up 17-0, and we were up 14-0 and still lost the game. So you have a team here that looks great at times, but sometimes doesn't have that killer mentality. The one game we did lose to Georgia Southern, we had no business in. That game was over from the jump. And the fact that the final score is 28-14, but everyone would have watched that game, it wasn't even close. But the other 3 games, you have a lot to take back. And you beat a North Carolina team 70-50. Regardless of the coaching change, it's an ACC program, and you laid 70 points on. So it's a lot of Jekyll and Hyde this year. So it's a long-winded answer, but going back to your original question, I think the expectations were very high, but at the end of the day, you were introducing a totally brand new team of coaches and personnel.
Yeah, you kind of touched on my the next question because you mentioned Coach Chesney coming over first year, coming over from Holy Cross. The team this year finishing 8-4 overall, 4-4 in conference. You were third in the Sun Belt East. Two of your losses were by 2 points. The other two losses were by 14 points. You mentioned only one of those games you really weren't in contention. It seems like your other three losses, could have went either way. Just with the bounce of a ball or big play here or there. But what would you say the overall feel of the James Madison fan base is? Now that we've reached the conclusion of the regular season.
I think we're pretty salty. If you look at JMU on Twitter or Instagram or X or wherever you look at stuff, we're a very passionate bunch. And there's a lot of very polarizing opinions about the season. You've got the faction that's, fire Coach Chesney. We need new coaches. Our offensive coordinator sucks. Our QB1 sucks, even though he's got 27 touchdowns and 4 interceptions on the year and is the youngest quarterback we started in the last decade. You've got the burn it down crowd. Then you've got sort of the other crowd that's like, well, let's take a step back. We got 67 new players. Everything is brand new. We're all figuring out. This is the first time the team's ever been in a hotel and an away game together, all that stuff, right? And you've got sort of where we are, where we're realists. 3 out of those 4 victories we should have never lost. Call it what it is. We were up double digits. And for one reason or the other, we couldn't finish. And you look back and you ask yourself, was that the players? Was that the coach? Is it play calling? Is it execution? And we think it's a little bit of everything. And so which is a very stark contrast from the prior JMU teams, which, when you look at us, even at the FCS days, we were always we were the defensive team. We were the stick it down their throat. We were a running program that finishes games. So that was very different for us. And we were always curious, how would the fans react when, wins don't come around as easy or as often as they would. So we've got some salt in our mouth right now. We're excited for Wednesday to hopefully clear some of that up.
Well, at least it's good to know that we're not the only school that has some fans that just want to burn it down whenever 1, 2, 3 games don't go your way.
Every loss.
Yeah, every loss. They just want to basically blow up the program.
It's interesting. I mean, you brought up we were 11-2 last year, but people forget a lot of those wins were by less than 3 points, and a lot of those wins were, the ball bounces one way or the other. I mean, we were down 2 scores versus the University of Virginia, and we came back and won 35-32. But what if we didn't do that? We almost lost to Troy on the road. A whole lot of other things. So this year is kind of like the anti-2023 when the ball didn't go our way. So it's just interesting to see how quickly fans react.
That's very true. Now, diving into this year's players, we talked about a few of your stat leaders before you came on, but highlight 3 offensive players for JMU that WKU fans need to be familiar with and aware of.
I think it all starts up front. And what I mean up front is our run game. George Pettaway has been a fantastic addition from the transfer portal. He started his career out at UNC for 2 years. He's a 4-star kid out of Virginia. Coming home, per se, to James Madison has just been fantastic. He brings a lot of speed. He's probably the fastest running back we've ever had, probably the shiftiest. And I think what's cool is our offensive coordinator knows how to use him, gets him out in space a little bit. Probably similar to what you saw versus Jack State. I know you don't want to hear that, but talk about spreading the ball around, attacking space. That's kind of what he does. So I think he's the number one threat for sure. Also, I would say the Knight brothers. They're kind of like, I say this in a nice way. They're both 5'6", 5'7", but they're kind of like just muscles, just like balls of muscle over the field. And one of them, Wayne Knight's a running back. He's just a bowling ball going down the field. And Ymir Knight's a slot receiver. And he's really come out late. And you can see him line up all over the field, reverses, whatever that little toss pass that quarterbacks do to the boundary, whether it's attacking the seams. He does a really good job. And his brother Wayne is a running back, but he'll catch some screens. He'll do some reverses. He'll mix it up a little bit. And I kind of coined this offense sort of positionless. We've got a lot of like scat back, small receivers, guys that operate in space. We used to call them satellite players. And I think we've got sort of like this positionless offense that if we run the play right and the play is called correctly, they can do some damage. That's for sure.
So worth noting, and I just want to mention it just for listeners that are listening on the WKU side, you didn't talk about a quarterback. So QB1's not playing, QB2's not playing. We're looking at QB3 in this game. Is that correct?
Like QB3.5 or QB2.5, depending on who you're speaking with. We also have a 6'5" freshman from Miami, JC Evans, who's had some playing time, but call him what he is. He's kind of like goal line, giving the ball, run up the A gap, get 2 or 3 yards at the moment. But yes, we're starting a 5th-year player, Billy Atkins, who actually was from, I think, the 2019 recruiting class. So how ironic, in the transfer portal era, we've got a 5th-year kid graduating with a JMU degree with the potential to get us our first bowl win.
It could be special. It's a good storyline, that's for sure. I love hearing about some of those offensive guys. Some of those guys are guys that we've talked about earlier in this episode. But I want to look at the other side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball. Do that same thing. Highlight 3 of those impact players that are going to be trying to slow this WKU offense down.
Yeah, I think we've done well in the transfer portal, and once again, it all starts up front. We've got Eric O'Neill, who first team all conference on defense. I think he's at 11.5 sacks from LIU, the Long Island University Sharks, where he was the defensive player of the year last year. So you're going to find some consistencies here where we've been recruiting for production when we go into the portal. But he's been a hell of a player for us. He plays sort of that buck defensive end where he's playing the run a lot, but we asked him to go after the quarterback. High motor guy. You'll see him on the field. He's kind of a quiet guy, what we've heard, like in the locker room. But when he makes plays, he's always got a little shimmy dance. He's doing something. His personality looks very different on the field. So he's a difference maker for us up front. So Eric O'Neill is definitely a name to watch out for. Opposite him is Kyrie Mans, who I think is probably responsible for why Eric O'Neill gets a lot of plays, because he's a speed rusher. He started his career out in Maine. He was a CAA, our prior conference. He was the defensive player of the year. I believe he went to Colorado, got a bag, but never played. And then he came to JMU. So, and he came back, so he wanted to play defensive line. So he's been a hell of a player. I think he's got 8 or 9 sacks on the year. He's always got a handful of tackles for losses. So you got 2 bookends that just are really strong disruptors. And then my third guy I'm going to talk about is a man named Terrence Spence, 5th-year player, transfer from Holy Cross, who I think leads the country with 6 interceptions, or maybe tied in top 5 or so. Definitely has benefited from some of the quarterback rushes up front, but he's been a hell of a player for us. He also has 2 or 3 block kicks this year as well. He had 5 coming out of Holy Cross, so that was kind of his claim to fame. But he's been a really good sort of a cover 2 guy. He's not going to have the deep speed you see out of a corner, but he's aggressive, which has been good and bad this year. But he's definitely a player to watch in the back end.
All right, sounds good. Sounds terrifying, actually. James Madison is the betting favorite in this game. But something about WKU playing in bowl games recently, it always leads to a magical performance. But can you give us 3 keys of victory for JMU to prevail in this bowl game?
Yeah. I go back to the passionate fan base that wants to burn it down. There's also a passionate fan base that says, run the damn ball. When you've got a George Pettaway, a Wayne Knight, a Tyler Purdy before he got hurt, a Joby Mallory who ran for 300 yards at Portland State last year in one game and is 6'1", 230 pounds, and you've got an offensive line that's got over 200 starts. Run the damn ball. I think that's number one, because we seem to get in the lead and then we forget what we're good at. So I think that's number one there. I think number 2 is keep it simple for Billy. I think I mentioned at the start of the podcast, we've got a lot of players that benefit from quick screens, get them out of space, let them be athletes. For our quarterback, I think that's the victory, right? If we're going to ask him to read a defense and go down to his third progression and throw it down the middle of the seam with a safety coming down, I think we're going to lose that game 9 times out of 10. But if we play the numbers game and throw the bubble screen, let our athletes run, I think we'll have a good time. And third piece, kind of like I mentioned on the defensive side, we all know when you're playing a pass-happy team, when you're playing a team that's to sling it outside, you got to dominate up front. And if we can get to Caden, I think Caden, right, is your quarterback. I think we'll have a good day. If we can disrupt the passing game, disrupt the timing, if he has to think about who's going to run after him, I think we'll have a good day there. Do you know is your left tackle coming back? I think he was out for the championship game, right? Is there any rumors there?
He was injured. I'm not sure if he's coming back or not. I haven't heard an official word yet.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting matchup for us. So we've got a defensive coordinator that kind of comes from all different angles. He was at Duke last year, so he led a really good program there. He was a former defensive coordinator at Stony Brook, and which gave James Madison a lot of fits when we were in the FCS days. So when we found out we got him, we were really excited because not a lot of teams could do that to us. And you'll see him blitz from everywhere. He'll have guys standing up, sitting down, all over the place on the field. He does a really good job attacking angles and making it really difficult for offensive linemen to ID who's coming and going.
Yeah, sounds like a really aggressive defense. And when I was diving into the stats, I also found it really interesting that you all lead the nation in turnover margin, plus 17. So, you take care of the ball. We see that offensively with the quarterback with only 4 interceptions, and then you take the ball away a lot. So that has to be a key whenever Tyler and I jump into ours. Taking care of the ball has to happen. Now, Michael, I can't let you get out of here without getting a score prediction from you. You don't feel like you have to take it easy. Be honest. I think there's a lot of question marks in this game. And like we talked about on the episode we recorded with you all, but I still think the players playing are going to play with a lot of pride and a lot of passion. And both sides want to win this game. We want to send our teams out, the seniors out, portal guys, whoever it is. We want to send them out with a win, just like you all do. So hit us with your score prediction. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, this is a tough one because, as we know, transfer portal era, you don't know which team's going to show up, who's going to be available. But I think this James Madison team's got a big chip on their shoulders. They have a lot of players that saw what's going on in JMU West, aka Indiana. They saw what they were able to do, and they were compared to them, and that was sort of the barometer heading into the season. I think you got a lot of pissed off, salty players. I think we come out 31-17. We're gonna we'll let a touchdown or two go, or we're gonna scratch our heads a little bit and get a little frustrated. But I think 31-17, we run the ball at least 40 times. We go maybe 17 pass attempts on the day, and we just try to dominate the line of scrimmage. And 31-17, that's my number.
Really dialed in, especially on the run attempts. And if you've looked up any statistics for WKU rush defense, I'd run the ball about 50 times. 40 sounds good, but yeah, that's definitely a respectable score prediction. I'm not mad at it. Mine will probably be somewhere in that ballpark. I'm not going to give away who I got winning just yet. But Michael, before we get you out of here, obviously we appreciate you coming on, but feel free to plug, your own social media, the podcast, JMU Sound Off social media. Where can Western Kentucky fans find you and the excellent content that you all provide for the James Madison fan base?
I appreciate it. Well, thank you again for having me on. This is a pleasure and honor. We're excited for this matchup. I think you talk to anyone at JMU Nation. We know all about Western Kentucky. We know what y'all have done, and for us to be in the same bowl game and this opportunity, we're really excited about it. But you can find us at JMU Sound Off, wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Music, you name it. We're on Twitter or X. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. We're on Blue Sky as well, so find us on there. All 4 of us, so my buddy John, Steve, and Taylor will be at the Boca Raton Bowl. So if you do follow us, you'll see us maybe post some content. We might not do a full show, but we'll have videos and clippings and such on the trip down there, which should be a good, really good time. I was hoping for sunshine and beautiful weather, but I think we're going to have maybe in the 70s, but I think they're calling for rain on Wednesday. So it might be a little wet. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I'm excited to get down to Florida.
For sure, man. Also, once again, thank you for coming on, brother, and I appreciate your time.
Right on. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Best of luck, Michael. Man, really, really good interview. Really enjoy what the James Madison guys are doing over there on the JMU Sound Off podcast. We got to join them for their live show earlier on Sunday as they also previewed the Boca Raton Bowl coming up. Got to jump on and answer some questions and just how we felt about the game. And then we really appreciate Michael returning that favor and coming over and talking some James Madison football and just highlighting some guys and some players. Especially a couple of defensive ends that sound like they really get off after the quarterback. And also touched on Eric O'Neill, like we talked about earlier, just how many sacks he has. Just sounds like it's going to be a tough game. Really looking forward to it. I wish the best of luck. Obviously, we hope for a Hilltopper victory, but really appreciate him coming and just sharing that James Madison passion that you could tell that, he kind of does that same thing that we do here for the Western Kentucky side. So, Tyler, we've got to jump in. We heard his keys to victory for James Madison, but what is going to be your first key to victory versus James Madison?
All right, I know one that you're probably going to do. So I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to say it first, but my first one's going to be hold the line. We're going to have to keep Caden clean, make sure he don't get pressured because, as Michael said, they do have players that like to come off the edges and really love hitting the QB. I'd like to keep him in a nice, clean pocket back there to where he ain't got to make any split-second decisions. It's going to put the ball in jeopardy.
Well, my number one key to victory is going to be revolving around the fact that they're the number one turnover margin team in college football. You knew it. We don't share notes, but you knew it. They're plus 17 turnover margin. That's huge. I mean, that's 1.5 a game basically in their favor, by averages. So, if we spot them a couple extra possessions in what could be a tight ball game, if we play well and our defense does what they need to do, every point can matter and every possession is going to be important. So we have to take care of the football. We can't throw multiple interceptions and or have multiple fumbles. I mean, this is an aggressive defense that's going to be punching the ball out. They have some ball hawks. We saw that on their statistics. They got some guys that will intercept the ball. So they're scouting us. They know what to expect from us offensively. They know what we like to run. We just got to take care of the ball and be smart with it. Like you said with Caden, clean pocket, good passes, accurate, on time. We have to win the turnover margin for sure. What's your second key to victory?
Well, I was going to say contain the run game because, that has been our killer. And while you was talking, I was thinking, I could have went with open up the playbook. It's the last game of the season. But I think we'll go with contain the run game because that's one thing that has frightened me over the last few weeks, last 4 or 5 weeks, if you would, including going back to New Mexico State. Is we have to stop the run. Hopefully, it is like that first Jacksonville State game where we do shut down their run. They're obviously their third string quarterback, Billy. Don't know much about him. I'm hoping he's not a scrambler, and we can get pressure back there on him. But I would really like to see us shut down the running because I think our defensive backs and safeties and cornerbacks, I think they will be good. We just have to shut down that run.
Well, like he said, Michael said in his segment, they're going to run the ball 40 times. I'm not going to be surprised if it's 40 plus times they run the ball. I don't think they're going to lean on quarterback Billy Atkins a lot. I think they're going to be handing the ball off or throwing the ball a lot to running back George Pettaway and letting him do the damage, either out of the backfield or just running the ball. So I think my second key to victory has to be containing George Pettaway. I don't think we're going to stop him. I think he's going to get his. I think they're going to scheme and design him open as best they can. I think we have to keep him in front of us, stop the big plays, not let it be big gashing runs or catches out of the backfield. I often say we have to win on first and second down. We can't let them be in third and short consistently. We were number 108 and allowing third down conversions when I highlighted that stat earlier. And that comes down to those first and second down plays. If they're consistently getting 4, 5, 6 yards per play on first down, and they're in second and short, and then third and even shorter, that's going to extend a lot of drives and keep that defense out there and get us tired. And I think all of that revolves around containing George Pettaway. And I think they have a stable running backs, but he's going to be the guy getting the bulk of the carries and targets out of the backfield. He's going to be that guy, that playmaker for them, that Elijah Young type running back that can do it all. So contain him, and we'll give ourselves a lot better chance of getting this win in this bowl game. What's your third key to victory versus James Madison?
It's going to be to have fun. This is the last game that some of these guys are going to be playing together, either through eligibility or transfer portal. And last bowl game in the famous Toaster Bowl, it just seemed like the guys went out there. Yes, we were down in a hole, but it seemed like they were out there playing for each other and having fun. And we eventually came back on them. I think if the guys, because there is no more pressure of getting to the conference championship or win the conference championship. It's not saying that the bowl game don't mean nothing, because it does, but all that pressure is off of you now. So you might as well go out there and have fun and enjoy your last game together as a team, because there will never be another 2024 Hilltopper team. For this one, this is it. And I would just like to see the guys go out there and enjoy their last football game together.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think we need to leave it all on the line. I think this group of players and this offense, especially when they're playing their best, we've seen them be pretty good in spurts for drives, for halves even. But it's been a while since we've seen a full, complete game, just pedal to the metal, just not those quick 3 and outs or turnovers, etc. I think this offense is going to have to play one of their better and best games of this season to come out with a victory versus this tough James Madison team. So I think we need to open the playbook, be creative. Not every second down doesn't have to be a run to Elijah. We can switch that up a little bit. I think when we go tempo and when we're passing the ball a lot, including to Elijah Young, I think we're hard to beat. But I think sometimes we get away from what works, and we let the defense dictate what they're giving us and what, we feel like we have to run the ball and establish that run. This is going to be a tough defense, right up there with the Louisiana Tech and Jacksonville State, what we saw at the end of the season. I think we have to impose our will a little bit, what we want to do, and that's be a tempo passing team. We're not a rushing team per se. We have some good running backs, but I really like those running backs coming out of the backfield, catching the ball, making plays, making the defense be honest sideline to sideline. That's what I want to see. I want to see this team just play loose, have fun, be creative, and just get one more win this victory. I think, bowl wins are still meaningful, even with the portal craziness as it is. And, just coaching changes and whispers abound, etc. These guys want to go out with a win. I know they do. There's still a lot of pride on the line. No matter what next season is going to hold. Let's finish this one off on a high note. And Tyler, who do you have for your MVT versus James Madison in the Boca Raton Bowl?
So for the last time this season, hopefully for not the last time, until he graduates, I'm going to go with Caden Veldkamp. If he makes smart passes, if he gets the ball to the receivers where they can catch it and make a play and get that extra yardage, I think that's going to help our chances exponentially, because we'll be able to put points on the board. So Caden's going to be my MVP.
Now, look, I considered going with Caden Veldkamp. I like to go with QB1 a lot. If you've listened to this podcast and are keeping score at home, my MVT has been QB1 probably 90% of the time. But it's not Caden this game. And I almost went with kicker Lucas Canero because Legatron's pretty good. And if this is a close game, it could come down to a 50-plus yard field goal to win the game like he did against Jacksonville State. I almost went with Lucas, but I didn't. I went a different route, and I'm going to go with some nostalgia with a player that recently has just been a bowl game baller. Somebody just when the lights are bright, whether we're in the New Orleans Superdome or whether we're playing ODU in the famous Toaster Bowl, give me Barron County's finest. Number 17, Dalvin. All he does is catch touchdowns, Smith. Give me Dalvin Smith, his last game in an illustrious Hilltopper career. We remember what he did last year versus ODU. I hope you remember what he did versus South Alabama the year before that, just torching them. For some reason, if you tell him it's a bowl game, that man will torch you. One-handed catches, touchdowns, big plays, maybe a double pass, a little DP, maybe a throwing touchdown. I think a big game from Dalvin would be a nice swan song for him and his career here at Western Kentucky and just what he's done over the last few years in bowl games. So give me Dalvin Smith having a big game to help lead us to victory. Now, Tyler, what is your score prediction versus James Madison?
All right, so I'm going to have the top winning because I feel like we can. We've beaten Sunbelt teams in the past. I'm going to go 35-28 tops.
Got you a close one.
Mm-hmm.
And I am actually right there with you. I'm going to go 31-28. Give me the Hilltoppers. And what's going to be a tough game. Maybe I have red glasses on, looking at this James Madison defense. I don't think this is going to be an easy victory. I don't think it's going to be a blowout victory like we had versus App State or South Alabama a couple years ago. I think this is going to be more of a grind out type Jacksonville State, 1917 type game. But I think we see a little bit more offense than that from both teams. So give me WKU in a 31-28 victory. Tops win, you win, we lit, baby. But man, I'm really looking forward to it. Again, I think we both appreciate Michael from the JMU Sound Off podcast for joining us and sharing some information about James Madison. That's a really good football program, really fast rising, up and coming over there in the Sun Belt and their transition to 1A. This will be a tough game. It's that time of year where you hate to see football coming to a close for us here at Western. But we still have the 12-team playoff to look forward to if you're just a football fan in general. So, looking forward to watching that unfold for the first time. We already, had a controversial Heisman. I'm not sure why or how Travis Hunter won that over Ashton Genty, but I guess the media darling won that one. But, college football is coming down to a close, and we'll shift our focus over to the basketball programs and how they're doing over in Diddle Arena. Now, I think we've seen a lot of good basketball for the women's and men's team, and just really look forward to obviously continuing our coverage into the winter and then spring sports, just right around the corner. So looking forward to this game. Should be a fun one Wednesday night, and hopefully it's a Hilltopper victory. But Tyler, hit us with your final words and take us on out of here.
All right. I was going to say something about Dalvin because he seems to always turn on in the bowl games. I mean, last year with them, a couple one-hand grabs, kind of moss some people. It's awesome. I hope he goes out there and balls out and has a career game this bowl game. I just going back to the basketball programs. I was there versus the Murray State game, and we had 3,700 people. That's crazy to me. I don't know where everybody was. If you're a season ticket holder and you just decided to sit at home, kind of shame on you because that was a great game. And it is a bad look whenever you got all them empty chair backs sitting down there in the camera or just down there just for everyone to see. So I would still plead to everyone to come to the ball games, bring your whole family, your grandma, your grandpa, aunt, uncle, your crazy cousins, your rowdy rugrats, whatever. Bring them all, because these guys and girls both deserve endless support for what they do for our university. Football, basketball, it don't matter. Baseball, softball, soccer, tennis, whatever. Just come out and support these teams and these people, because they are putting it all out there for you. But yeah, I'm excited for this JMU game. Should be a good one. Should be a great. If you're going down there, have fun. Beautiful weather. Maybe a little rain, but at least you're not here in South Central Kentucky. So, Hilltopper Nation, let's go. And Mauve, who has it better than us?
Nobody, buddy. You know it.
You know, go Tops.
Go Tops. Later, guys.
See you.